Wednesday. Is this the last Fed rate hike we are going to see in this entire cycle? Maybe. Let's see. We're going to discuss this. We're going to discuss Worldcoin. Is this yay or nay? We're going to discuss X.com with our thoughts on the platform, where we are spending an amazing amount of time with crypto. We're talking about the crypto setback. A lot of the coins dipped a little bit over the last couple of days. Why, where, how? We're going to discuss Ort Summit in Singapore that our sister company of Bake, part of the Cake Group, Birthday Research, is hosting. And we're going to discuss a bit of a sneak peek on what's going to be happening on Bake that you should be expecting. That dollar cost averaging, maybe a few more coins. So it's going to be action-packed. Looking forward to this last space of July. Next week, obviously, we're going to be in August. So, yeah, next week we're going to be reflecting a bit on the start of Q3. Fabio, how has it been going? How has the quarter been? How has the month been? How has the week been? How is everything back since you're back since last week? Let's dive in.
Yeah, I guess there's never a dull moment in our industry or news in general on Twitter. Like on Sunday, it was looking pretty bleak, and I was like, what are we going to talk about? And then on Monday, it was kind of everything fell into place with Worldcoin, with X.com, and of course, a big week when it comes to macro and to the Fed decision. So I'm kind of catching up. It's always tough to when I'm going on holidays and I'm not doing email, not doing any DMs, and then kind of getting back. It always takes a day or two as well. Like the first day out of holiday is super unproductive. I don't know how I can change it. I don't know if other people have the same issues, but starting up again after being away for a week or two is kind of tough because you're out of the usual rhythm and usual flow. And I don't know, but I'm back full speed, and yeah, super. A lot of interesting stuff is going on. So I'm not sure what kind of topic do you want to start with. What's the most
I'll leave it up to you. What's the discussion right now on the socials? Is it more Worldcoin? Is it more X.com? Is it more the crypto setback? Is it Fed tomorrow? Or is it because everyone is kind of expecting this to be a 25 basis point tomorrow and then let's see? Or what do you think is the most pressing topic? You're the one who is head of community.
If I look at my timeline, it's definitely X.com. Like
really?
Everybody has their own takes on the logo and on what it means from a branding perspective. Lots of people love it. Lots of people hate it. And I saw.
Are the people that hating it, are they generally those that are negative against Twitter and negative against Elon, or are there people who are generally positive towards Elon and positive towards Twitter that now are negative towards that rebrand? Because to me, that is that tribalism, right? That, yeah, is to me not so meaningful. Just like in crypto, right? If you have a Bitcoin maxi, it's not meaningful that a Bitcoin maxi is bullish. I think what's meaningful is when a Bitcoin maxi is like, okay, hey, I'm a bit more cautious right now, right? So to me, it's the same here. If I have someone who's always critical towards Elon and Twitter, and suddenly now is like, hey, this rebrand is really good, or you have someone who normally is like super bullish on Elon and then now says, I don't like this, that's more meaningful for me. How do you see this?
Yeah, maybe first responding to somebody in the comment section. Like he told me to buy a mic, and I actually have like a really expensive mic, but I think I don't know, maybe my sound is not working correctly. Could you confirm that, Ice?
I cannot judge it on YouTube because I hear you on Twitter, so that's how I hear you here. I can't judge, but before when we were talking about on YouTube here, it sounded fine. So I don't know.
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna follow up on that, but on X.com. So you definitely you got some fuel. Like the haters got some fuel to hate even more about Elon. And of course, the fanboys, they love what he's doing. But maybe the more nuanced section, there were some polls. And in the end, that's also a question I ask myself. Is this a positive thing for Twitter? Because you're talking about one of the biggest brands in social media. Like everybody knows Twitter. Everybody knows what it is. Everybody knows the blue bird. And nobody really knows X. And also kind of ends up with like what are you going to call Twitter videos? X videos, maybe a bit of a dangerous choice. And it opens up a few gateways. Like
I mean,
they
the one that's
suggest,
really lovely is the one like instead of liking, it's like XOXO. I think that's like my goodness. But I mean, aren't we? I don't know. I feel like we're softening up here a bit. Like I always feel Twitter is a very kind of masculine, harsh kind of environment, and I don't know, like calling something XOXO is like okay. I don't know.
um, yeah, the XOXO is one thing, and then they have like, what is a tweet called? It's a sheet, uh, XEET. I don't even know how to
Oh,
pronounce
really?
it, but on their help center, they wrote that tweets are now seats. So there are some branding issues that they need to resolve. I guess Twitter Blue is then X Blue or X Black. Not really sure,
Elon say he wants to call it balls, blue balls.
but it's definitely an interesting move. And the part that I'm even more excited is Elon has this great vision of bringing, like, making this the WeChat of the West. I hope with more privacy, and of course, Dogecoin pumped instantly with the rebrand yesterday because there is a lot of hope in the Doge community that Elon is going to make Doge the native currency of X, not of Twitter. And so it's definitely a lot of interesting things are going on, and but I haven't really made my mind up. I liked Twitter as a brand. And yeah, but Elon just likes to do his own things. If it's going to be a successful rebrand or not, we will see. But it's a bold move.
Yeah, maybe on YouTube comments, let us know what are the weirdest, funniest things you have seen on the Twitter to X rebrand. Maybe also on the Twitter space. You can write this in the comment section of that space. I can pull it up and I can read it, and I'll show it on the video as well. Yeah, Steven obviously loved it with his name X Snoop. So Snoop, it's yeah. My take on it is, and look, I mean, I don't want to say I'm a Elon fanboy. There are things that I really don't think that Elon does well, and he's by far not someone like I think the way he builds businesses is absolutely exemplary. I think the way he lives his entire life to me is absolutely not sustainable for me. I would not want to have that family mess that he has. I would not want to have the health mess that he has. But I mean, you cannot have everything, and the way he kind of approaches business is so unique and so incredibly successful. And I think that's something that really has to be given credit to where credit is due. And for me, looking at that rebrand, I think in the short term, if this is just a short term thing, I think it's going to be painful. I don't think it was a good move in the short term. But and again, I cannot see under the hood. I don't know what Elon is thinking. But if, and this is pure speculation, if this is a rebrand, like you mentioned, to bring it under the X.com kind of brand and the X group, or I think that's what it's called, because also you made that post that the Twitter shares were sold now or transferred to the X group or whatever this thing is called. And if basically this entire empire he has is moved under this one hood and it becomes the everything app, from energy to money to communication to obviously thought processes to interplanetary stuff, then obviously that move is absolute genius, and it actually the parts kind of enhance each other. It's absolutely incredible if that's gonna play out. So yeah, I think here the question really is how far down the line does Elon think? How strategic are these parts placed? I think that's going to be the key thing. And I mean, right now people are complaining about it. I think it's going to be relatively irrelevant whether you call it Twitter, whether you call it X.com. I think it's going to be totally irrelevant. And whether it's going to be called a tweet or whatever, X sheet, or I don't even know what, I didn't even know that. I think that's so secondary. So I, I think the key question is right now, let's talk the next 1 to 2 months before these network effects can potentially set in that he's trying to set up. Do you think, and we saw this with Threads kind of had this peak up to 100 million users and now they're basically non-existent. I mean, just like Google Plus and stuff. Do you think the conversation is going to move away from X.com and is going to go to other like things like threats, or do you think that that's actually going to pull a lot of things in? How, because that's to me is something that I think is really crucial for these network effects to happen.
I don't see the conversation going away from Twitter. Or X.com. Doesn't really matter what the name is. Like in the short term, people tend to care a lot about these things. In the long run, it really doesn't matter because you like. I can kind of talk a bit about this because I got my Twitter account suspended a while back, and this is something
Do you
that
wanna share what you got it suspended for, or you know?
yeah, I hope YouTube doesn't suspend us of me saying that because I was inciting violence. That's the reason why my Twitter account got suspended. I told somebody that he deserves a high five with a chair in his face, and that was enough reason for
Well,
permanent suspension. And we're talking about this account was 13 years old. I had more than 10,000 tweets, like
Fabio took this
4,000
personal.
followers.
He really,
Yeah,
I
and
remember, he really, it was like, I think, I don't know, like his like family or the Twitter account, it was not clear, you know, what gave him more emotional stress.
it's true. It really bothered me that you know that somebody can just flip a switch and turn off your account because a lot of time and effort went into this. And on Twitter, you know, I can never get this account back because it was created in like 2011 or so. So I can't travel back in time. And I got a nice following, and like Twitter was a big part of my personal life and of
The
my business
identity
life. Yeah,
of
and like
Fabio's identity.
it's weird, but if you invest a lot of time and if you spend a lot of time on Twitter and this gets taken away from you, it it's not a nice feeling. And I was under the impression that things improved a lot under Elon's management. They, I don't know, some did, some didn't.
What do
But
you feel improved? What do you feel didn't improve?
you are kind of okay. So there were a few topics that were kind of a no-go on Twitter that you couldn't really talk about. And so I don't want to go into the depth of these, but usually they were a little bit the things that woke and the left was against. These were the things that couldn't really be discussed openly on Twitter. And the thing that definitely improved is community notes. Like I love community
Man,
notes,
they are
even when
really, really good. I think they're really
they're
good.
so good. Even when I see that there are everybody knows them. These mobile ads that
Dude,
sometimes
I
I you
also
know
saw this on a mobile ad. I saw an community note the other day on a mobile ad that this game was like reported to be a scam and is not actually representative at all. Like,
what they do is they show you gameplay that looks super nice. You think, oh my god, I want to download that app. You download it, and it's something completely different. I really ask myself the question: why do they just not program the app as it is in the app? It cannot be so difficult. But my god, so this community notes, they check ads, they check precedents, and I think that's the best improvement that Twitter did to this day. And I also feel like compared to all other platforms, Twitter is the place where they find this line of it is useful, it is you can get your news there, you can have interaction there. Of course, there is some negativity, of course, there is some fake news, but they kind of find a nice line in between. Like on other platforms, it's much worse. Either you're getting censored, or you cannot say certain things, or you have no network effects. And so Twitter has the best compromise on these things currently. So I don't think the discussion is going away, even though they changed the name. And they got a lot of attention. So it might
so what's the
eventually.
so how do you feel it got more negative?
So Elon makes all of these bold claims that censorship and freedom of speech has improved, but it really hasn't. I see so many people still getting banned without any reasoning. So, and if you are at the receiving end of
You're just
this,
talking
like,
from your own
uh,
standpoint.
yeah, yeah, and also a few friends of mine, and like, if you're at the receiving end of this, you have they say you can appeal the decision and you can state reasons or whatever, and they will look into this. But nobody's looking into this. You just get an automated response from a computer, and they just tell you, "We looked into your case. We're not doing anything." And so, and I did this like 50 or 60 times. No way. Yeah.
Uh,
But that's maybe the negative part. And
I mean, for
the,
me, I love the less censorship. I mean, I'm a someone, again, I think censorship is such a difficult topic because if we have no censorship, then we would have all the bots, and bots are just so efficient at posting, and it's just so difficult to then, for example, understand what is the line of censoring, right? And I think we would all agree that there are certain things we should censor. One hand, because of the experience, and because of other things, because you don't want certain things to be posted on things. I think we would all agree that child pornography is something that should be censored, right? We all, I think, any kind of healthy human being agrees with that. I think any healthy human being agrees that we shouldn't have bots on there, right? And because bots are just gonna make the experience horrible because you get spammed left and right. So and then obviously these are things that are very easy, and then it gets harder and harder. And I think both of us belong in kind of the same group where we believe, show me like even information that's like false information. I don't have an issue with that. I will figure it out. I think I can kind of figure out if this is the right or wrong information, right? I feel less, I don't feel so threatened by this. And then, but then obviously other people say, well, maybe some people really feel threatened by it, and they feel, so I'm someone who definitely loves that. I think under Elon, this bar of all kinds of information coming out, and I don't want to say false information. I'm just saying that less decision on is this false or right information. That decision that is easier. I have not experienced so much negative stuff. What I have noticed is I feel Twitter has become a bit more polarizing. So I do feel that it's because of that. Obviously, before you had way more of one tone because kind of everything else got filtered out, and now you have way more polarization on there. I feel that is the only thing, and I actually, I think I'm spending less time on Twitter now than I actually did under Jack Dorsey. Why? Because I feel it shows me so much of what Twitter thinks it I want to see, and I actually do want to see, that I always feel that it's so good at that now, and I'm just someone that notices that from by myself, and then I don't want to. On the one hand, I don't want to have my biases kind of reconfirmed and stuff. So that's just more on that, and I feel it shows me on purpose things that it knows angers me or aggravates me, right? It triggers me, and it's so good at that's I and then I just spend very little time on it. And I think that's the key thing. But I'm generally someone who but I want to say I don't spend any time on other social media platforms. So it's still for me Twitter, and I don't know, maybe other social media platforms are way worse than that. So to me that's the only thing that I have noticed. Yeah.
one of the biggest dangers, and something I kind of see with myself happening, if you spend an increasing amount on social media, like I saw a guy posting or asking the question, how many hours do you spend on Twitter a day? And there were people showing their screen time with 4 hours to 9 hours a day on Twitter. And what it kind of does to you is it radicalizes you.
I agree.
If you
I
are,
can believe
if
that.
you're part of a certain community or a certain
Yep.
political mindset, it feeds you more of the same, and it kind of confirms the views that you already have, and it even takes you 2 or 3 steps further and kind of deepens that. And if you go back to the real world and you actually talk with family and friends, they will kind of be shocked that your views changed that much into one direction. And these conversations with actual human being in the real life, they kind of anchor you again in a somewhat of a more reasonable mindset. But it can definitely radicalize people. So there is a bit of a danger in these echo chambers,
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. No, I mean that's something I completely see myself. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I think we covered X.com. Let's talk. What's the next topic?
Let's go Worldcoin.
Cool. Worldcoin. I actually have read quite some stuff on it. Have you? Do you want to give a bit of an overview on it? Let's do that first, and then, uh, yeah, let's take it from there, and then we have a bit of a discussion.
So I think the first time I heard about it was maybe a year or 18 months ago, and it was already quite polarizing and dividing back then. And back then, I think it was a tweet from Sam Altman, and he's also a bit of a polarizing figure. And that's just my personal opinion here, but I get a little bit of SBF vibes from him. Like he has a bit of the same kind of guy vibes. Not that he's going to pull something like SBF did, but I just get the same feelings listening to him when I listen to the Lex Friedman podcast with Sam Altman. But he's an extremely smart guy, as SBF is, and he's involved with a lot of things that kind of divide people. So OpenAI, for example, and he has this beef with Elon, and now with Worldcoin, the questions or the thing that there are certain things that raise questions with me without judging it, like they are gonna scan and your iris, which raises some privacy and some data issues with me personally. I don't want to to scan my iris, and then the token supply, like they have like 1% of the circulating supply is out there, 25 billion market cap, and 99 they kind of withhold, which is also a bit something of the SBF playbook that they are or he's doing there. So these are just the questions that I raise. They definitely garnered some attention, a lot of attention. A lot of people are looking at this. A lot of people are tweeting about that in a positive way or in a negative way. Like Jack Dorsey had, I think, 3 tweets about it yesterday. They already have kind of a big following on social media, and everybody seems to be talking about it. So they have certain positive things going, but it is, yeah, they're for me. It raises a lot of questions. I haven't done a deep dive on it. I probably know a lot less than you do. So I would be really interested in some juicy details that you could be sharing with us. That was just my yeah.
Good. Then let me do the following. Let's start with the base problem. And the base problem is identity. So if we discuss how to create identity, let's start very fundamental. If we are talking about blockchain, the fundamental problem that Satoshi solved in 2009 that was thought to be unsolvable is actually voting in a system where there is no identity. Meaning, we don't know if it's a million computers that are voting or is it actual human beings. And the reason why voting is so important in the blockchain system is because that's the only way how you can decide what a data block looks like. Because if you cannot decide what a data block looks like, then you fake one data block, then you delete it, and you just create a new data block. Basically, you make a double spend. And the way Satoshi solved that was with proof of work in saying, let's use the second law of thermodynamics and say, if you show that you went one-way entropy, you burned energy or you used energy and put it into a form that's not usable anymore, aka you solve these puzzles, then that gives you a voting right. And it doesn't matter if you're a machine or a human, as long as you do this, you get a voting right, and that allows you to tell you what that next block looks like. And it's just unlikely for you to fake that you then go create one block and then create another block for the very simple reason, because this is super expensive. And the more people actually participate in this, the less likely it becomes that actually a single entity can do this. Unless there's more than 51% of you controlling the hash rate, because then you would make a decentralized system getting closer and closer to a centralized system. That kind of system has massive upsides and was moved in with Ethereum and with many other blockchains now into a proof of stake kind of system that now takes over many blockchains who say, look, Bitcoin and the other proof of work chains have this idea of creating consensus this way, and it works super well, but there would be other alternative ways as well with proof of stake. So instead of doing the work, you have to lock up coins and you stake them. And both has up and downsides, and we have discussed this in a lot of great lengths. What would actually be the ultimate solution would be that anyone, and this could also be applicable to machines, but also to humans, would be that you would have reputation or identity on a blockchain. Because then this entire thing would work in a simple way. If you would ever be caught cheating, then you would simply get locked out of the system and you cannot participate in it anymore. Or you would have a strong penalty where whenever you say this is what something looks like, you would get downgraded in that importance. And so I thought this would be the ultimate way to actually how to create consensus on a blockchain. And the way you could do this, there's actually 3 ways. And I'll just simply pull up those 3 ways. The the first way is not on this graph, but the first way is to do this with traditional KYC documents. So that would be the traditional way, right? So that's how all the exchanges, this is how Bake does it. You have these traditional KYC documents and you have to upload them and so on. Obviously, privacy, it depends, right? Because whoever does this obviously has very low privacy. On the blockchain, sure, there you would have high privacy. The problem is fake people, robustness of decentralization. I mean, this does not exist in such a system at all because it depends on the government, depends on the passport, and so on. The accessibility is also not really good. So what a lot of people came up with, and it's actually been going on for a long time, is so-called social graph-based KYC systems or social graph-based identity systems. And the idea here is it's basically a reputation of people lending reputation to other people. So you go and you kind of identify people that you trust, and these people identify people that trust. And the more trust you get from other people, the better your identity. And that's how then you create identity. Now, the problem here is privacy is basically non-existent in such a system by definition. So obviously that's a bit of an issue. However, it's almost impossible to fake this in there because it really depends on important people giving trust to other people. So the problem on this at the end is we have never solved it so far because it really needs this graph, and it's very difficult to build this graph in a blockchain system. So what most people have always thought was going to be the solution is something that's connected to biological identity, right? So that is kind of the idea here. And so the question on biological identity comes down to two factors. And the first factor is, does the biological identity have enough uniqueness that you can actually use that thing as being completely unique? And most people think, for example, that Face ID is so unique that you could use it to clearly identify someone. But it's actually not. It's very difficult with Face ID to be super unique. It's okay for unlocking a phone because it's so unlikely that out of 8 billion people, you will ever run across someone who can also unlock your phone. But there are actually a lot of collisions possible. So in cryptography speak, you call this entropy. So the entropy is not large enough in this to actually, for example, use Face ID. There are a lot of other things, like even if you try to scan veins on the arm, there's not enough entropy there. Fingerprints, actually very difficult sometimes, not only to scan them, but also to get enough entropy on that. So that's one thing. I think the two only things that have enough kind of variety and diversity to create the entropy is iris scan and is actually scanning the entire hand. So that would really kind of create this. This is also when you do fingerprint scans, one is generally not enough. You need to scan at least, I think, the thumb and one of the other digits, but mostly they do all five, right? So that's what the normal thing is. Also for criminals, right? That's why they always scan all five. So just that's also an interesting explanation. We learned on this actually very interesting in medicine. What actually is like really unique among 8 billion people and what is not unique. So that's quite interesting. Also, kind of bringing that back from 15 years ago. And so it's iris and the entire hand. Now the question is, if it is iris and the entire hand, what do we have in today's life? Because I see these comments, right, where people say, hey, why do we have to use this orb, this weird thing to scan the iris? Why can we not just do FaceTime? I mean, we have FaceTime. We could use FaceTime, right? Why not just use that? Why don't use a finger scan and so on? The problem with this is you cannot clearly identify an individual that way. So if you wanted to go with some biological biometric system, you will have to do something that either is iris or is the entire hand. And we don't have anything in this world right now that does that. So what I'm trying to explain here is, does it make sense to explain why the orb is there? And if you want to go with biometric and you want to clearly identify without having these duplicates, then you need to go this route. So I think that is something that's very easy explainable. Now, the question whether this should be done by a company or by entire government, I think that really depends on what you trust more here, right? Because I think everyone is gonna, like, if you trust the government more, you're happy with the government. if you don't trust the government, maybe you're okay with a private company, or maybe you want something else. Now, the issue I just see, and this is not called Worldcoin because that's just a coin. What is this thing actually called? Oh God, what is the company called that's behind it? Maybe someone can look this up. The company is called something. So the company behind this, who actually built all this, is called something. I just can't remember what it's called. Um, Tools for Humanity. So Tools for Humanity is that company who builds all this, and they actually want to try to open source this. Now, the thing on all of this is, and that is where, on the one hand, I understand their approach. And if that is what you believe is the right approach, right, I think they're going the right approach. The question is just how much would you trust, in this case, Tools for Humanity? And to me, that's just very difficult. And I think one of the most dangerous things is, there's a very good book called Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell, who says, if the fundamentals are very dangerous, but all you have is you have a human being, and because of that human being, you change your mind, even though the underlying is dangerous. This is a very, very dangerous decision-making tree, right? And so in this book, they talk about FBI agents, they talk about the Second World War, how Hitler actually tricked a lot of the opponents in actually doing a lot of dangerous stuff. But then when he talked to people, he was so convincing that all these opponents were like, yeah, this is like all super dangerous. But because he's so convincing, we change our mind. And so this is just very dangerous. And I think with Sam, I don't know, I do get similar vibes on this, right? So the underlying, I understand the direction. The direction makes a lot of sense. The question on whether this data in the orb is safe or not, I cannot judge. I don't want to pretend to be someone who is a hardware expert that can judge this. So I leave these judgments to people who really understand this. I have no opinion on this. I want to be very clear, right? Whether this is safe or not safe. The approach that they're taking makes sense if this stuff is truly safe. If this stuff truly becomes a zero knowledge, this is something I cannot judge on. I leave this to other people, so I'm going to leave out my comment. I just want to put this in there. To me, this is the same thing as when people make statements on what's happening on the other side of the world simply based on what a news outlet presents, and the other person who relies on a different news outlet has a totally different opinion. So I'm just very cautious with this because I know how easy it is to trick people's opinions. And if I'm not there, I cannot verify it myself. I just have learned to take a more cautious approach by just saying, I don't know, and I rather stand back for now. So I just want to be clear on this. The things to me, so that's one thing, right? That's purely identity for the blockchain. So that is one of three things that Tools of Humanity or Tools for Humanity is actually doing. And I want to be very clear on this because people start mixing this stuff together. The second thing is wallet. So what they're now trying to do is they're trying to use this identity for a wallet. Now, I don't think there's much issue with this because that wallet is very easy to be like, are the private keys? Do you own the private keys? All these things. So that's very, very easy if that first thing works or not, right? The wallet, I think, is not so much of a discussion because actually, if this first thing actually worked, I think a lot of platforms, if recognized as a tool for stopping any kind of crimes or being an equivalent to the KYC AML data that you have, if that becomes an equivalent, then I think a lot of platforms, a lot of wallets and so on would implement this. I think that's the least kind of discuss-worthy or objectable point. I think that's just a logical connection. The third connection is where it gets, in my opinion, the most iffy and the most sketchy, and that's where I feel where I get some weird vibes, and that is Worldcoin. And that's the third part. So I want to be very clear that these are actually three separate things. And Worldcoin has some things that are just super, super weird. The first one, and that is how this entire thing starts, is sure, you want to get some adoption going for people to scan their irises. So I get this, right? But instead of giving out dollars or whatever, they're giving out this Worldcoin thing. But this thing is super insanely diluted. So if I just show this, let me just show that to you. So these are the I don't know if I can zoom in somehow. How do I zoom in? I'm not sure I can. Sorry. Can I zoom in here? Yeah, I can. Okay, so I think there's about 1% of the entire thing is actually in circulating supply. So that's the crucial thing, right? So at the moment, there's 100 million WLDs in circulating supply of 10 billion. So people are all talking about, well, look at the price of this. This is so easy at the moment with a market cap of 240 million. Man, this thing can easily go like times 10. We can easily go into the billions. Yeah, the problem is, if you actually calculate this all the way out, we're already at 23 billion, right? And the reason why this is so important is because all these coins already exist. This is not like a staking thing or something. A lot of the early VCs, the Worldcoin team, and you can look all this up, right? They kind of bought these things for cents on the dollar, and they're just waiting for the coin to go up, and then they dump. And this is the crazy part. On top of that, because you have identity, so far, if you actually think this through, it is impossible to create a referral program on a blockchain because there's no identity. And so people can just copy paste, so it doesn't work. But because they have identity, they start doing a referral program. And this referral program is not a typical referral program. It goes over multiple layers. So it becomes like this, I recruit you to recruit other MLM scheme. And that is where all these vibes, in my opinion, get so sketchy, right? So that is where I then sit and say, look, I understand the direction of the orb. I still think the direction of the orb gives me some dystopian vibes, right? Whenever I think of Minority Report, Tom Cruise in the bathtub, right? Kind of replacing his eye. Like that is just what I see, right? With his patches on. It gives me all these dystopian things. But then on the other hand, if they don't do it, someone else will, right? So someone else will go this route because as far as we know right now, there's only 3 ways to create identity, either via documents, via social graph, or via biometrics. And so biometrics, there are not many options. So one will go this route, right? So we will have this. Some company will do it. Some, I don't know, government organization will do it. So we will go this route. This will be a route that we will go. And at some point, more and more people will adopt. So this is just, to me, an inevitable path. The question is, do we want them to do it or not? I think that's a different discussion. Is this thing secure? Different discussion that I cannot even answer. The wallet is a logical connection that I don't think is much of a debate. The issue I have is why do this stuff with the coin? And the coin has zero utility. To me, it's not clear what this thing actually has a utility. Like, I don't even understand what the utility is for this because you cannot do anything with it. Utility comes from scanning your iris, and people who believe that work creates value is not true. Utility creates value. And you scanning your iris and getting world coins for that doesn't create any value. There is no value in this, right? I give the same example all the time. If you are digging a hole like a mad person for an entire day, then you fill up this hole again. You worked for an entire day, but there's no value created because you weren't useful. But imagine you dig a hole, there's a pipe down there. All you do is for 1 second, you fix the pipe. That's not the work. The work is digging down. And then you're closing it again. Suddenly you create actual value for the same kind of work. Just one thing is value useful, the other one is not useful. It's the same thing here. So I don't understand that part at all. If they had used Bitcoin, if they had used actual dollars, if they had used USDT, USDC, or whatever, I would have seen this maybe entirely different, probably impossible for them to do. And that is to me where the sketchy, iffy part comes in. Not sure if to me this is SBF vibes, but to me this is some, I don't trust you because the fundamentals are weird. You're trying to play this super appropriate kind of a side, and I don't know. I'm actually gonna try to get in touch with their CEO. Their CEO is German, and I'm gonna see if I can actually do a long format interview with them. Would be interesting because I would love to understand these points a bit. And look, I also want to be very clear. I think their CEO, or probably the team, seems to be very, very, very good on cryptography, on building this stuff, right? So again, if they had built the orb and there's no Worldcoin connected to that, I would have probably less of an issue, to be honest. I think that is something where a cryptocurrency, in my opinion, is actually more hindering than useful, in my personal opinion. And there's a lot of instances where I would support having a cryptocurrency. In this case, and again, I'm a big proponent of having their own cryptocurrency, building a community. I think tokens create community. I'm a big fan of that, right? I'm not that I'm not a person that believes one coin should rule them all. I think the exact opposite. I think people need identity, and this identity comes via the coin. I just don't see this there. So this is my entire kind of 15-minute rant on that.
Wow, it was a really, really good summary, better than I could ever hope for. I actually learned a few things on, especially on biometric identification. And the interesting part about that, and I think where we fully agree is, we also talked about this, I think 4, 5, 6 months ago, that the coming narrative for blockchains is, and Vitalik hinted on this as well, is probably going to be identity. And I guess everybody kind of knows this in the back of their head, that we're not going to be forever bound to a paper passports that we take with us everywhere, and that eventually identity needs to become digital. Like we run in so many issues online where it is such a hassle. Everybody in the crypto space knows this. You need to sign up KYC with proof of address, with your passport. And that's just completely different eyes for us, because even with those documents and even with the selfie you're taking, that there is still a high chance of fraudulent activity. And so the system is bad. It needs to be improved. The identity needs to be digital, maybe on a blockchain, maybe not. But I guess you asked the right question: is who do we trust in taking on these tasks? And like for me, it's something I get really uneasy when just talking about this or thinking about it, because this kind of opens the door to all kinds of dystopian outcomes. And yeah, but it can, if done right, it could add a lot of value. And here, just so I come from a very traditional government, the Swiss government. Everything is pen and paper, everything is done manually. And now I live in a government that is extremely digitized here in the Netherlands. We don't get mail anymore. Everything is online. We have DigiD, digital identity, which we use for all kind of different government services. So they're like light years
ahead. How does
ahead
that make you feel, Mr. Bitcoin, and suddenly having a watchdog over you?
Yeah,
Because I mean, I have the same in Singapore. I'm throwing stones out of a glass house here.
It's a weird feeling, because it makes me very uneasy having everything, having all of my income, my taxes, my everything, my health insurance, everything is digital. It makes me kind of uneasy because, it can get leaked, it can get hacked. But on the other hand, the user experience is amazing. Like you have no idea. Like, for example, I'm currently in the process of trying to buy a home. And then you need to talk to a bank, for example, or for an advisory bureau to give you a mortgage. And they have like a mobile application, and they ask for 4 different kind of government institutions. I can click one button, log in with my digital identity, and they have all of my data for 28 days, and then it expires and deletes itself. Like, it's pretty insane that this is.
Yeah,
like,
but I mean, the more powerful
today.
thing would be you still have to trust, right? In this case, I mean, if you think this, so that's why I'm saying. So, what the idea that Worldcoin or tools for humanity goes towards, that idea is not an idea like, and that is a bit of my issue. My issue that I see on social media is most people have no idea, right? I see comments that just like make me like just show how clueless a lot of people are when it comes to what biologicals can actually be used. They have no clue about cryptography. They don't understand the entropy needed, and to me, or they just, I don't know, they're just like such a fan of one coin, and because of them trying to do whatever something that doesn't use their coin, they think the project is crap. That's why I'm splitting it on purpose up in three things to make this very, very clear what are the three things that they're doing. I'm trying to breaking it apart on what are the issues that I see in each step, right? And I think the biggest issue I have is the coin. I agree on that, but that doesn't justify calling the other two steps scammy or an issue, especially not the wallet. I don't think anyone is going to have an issue with the wallet. The question is really on, is that orb trustworthy or not, or does it release the data? Because if it didn't, I mean, that would just be the most powerful thing, because then you being able to revoke the access to your identity, you can actually verify that yourself, right? I mean, it's so powerful. Like, decentralized identity would be so powerful. It would. So
Yeah,
I see this as, I am not sure we're going to see actual product market fit on this. I am very doubtful. Look, Sam Altman with OpenAI obviously did something amazing. The question really is, how much did he do and how much was a lot of the original backers there? And that's something that's very difficult for me to judge. So maybe he is that kind of fake wunderkind that actually wasn't such a wunderkind, and yeah, it's just kind of doing a good job there and is now trying to ride on Worldcoin with this. Yeah, just my thoughts. Yeah. Okay, Fed tomorrow. Fabio, what's gonna be the decision?
So for everybody that thinks there is going to be no Fed hike, I'm very sorry, but there is definitely going to be a rate hike. And I even would make the bet that it would be more likely for a 50 basis point increase than a 0 one. I'm deciding, and I'm definitely betting on 25. But it is more likely that they're going to raise 50 than 0.
I think actually on the, let me check. I think on the CME tool, now even the probability actually went from either, like, I think 0 doesn't even have a probability anymore. I think it's either 25 or 50. Yeah. There's actually no more probability for, here, let me pull this up. There's actually not even a probability anymore for 0. The probability is either 25 or 50. So let me quickly go down here. So that's for tomorrow. So it's either 25 basis points or there's a 1% chance for 50. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't check that before, but I'm happy that CME agrees, because CME was actually, this dashboard was the best predictor. Like, they always went with the thing that had the highest probability.
Dude, it's the market. And I mean, look, I sometimes it swung crazily, but at the end it's the market. And yeah.
I think that the really interesting part is, I think everybody agrees, like, that there's a 99% chance the market thinks that I think the more interesting question is also the title of this space and the title of this video. Is this going to be the last one?
Yeah.
And so just to throw a few points in there before I say if I think it's the last one or not. Like, we saw this rally that we are seeing right now is such a weird rally, because let me state a fact that actually happened yesterday that a lot of people might have missed. But the NASDAQ, they do a rebalancing every quarter. And once, in very, very special occasions, they do something that is called a special rebalancing. And this happened. So the 5 biggest stocks in the NASDAQ, which is like Nvidia, Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Meta, I think, they grew to be 47% of the whole index. And they are going to be, they rebalance this to 38%. And this doesn't really happen a lot. And you can really see just by the growth of these 5 stocks that there is some disturbance in the force or in the market. Like, the usually slightly before things really turn bad, I don't remember how they called them in the .com, but you can call these stocks the 7 wonders, or the big 5, or the FANGs. And what with uncertainty in the market and people not really knowing what to do, especially retail, they tend to focus on these big names, and it's really a consolidating and an exhaustion. What happens is everybody's putting their money there, and you exhaust the trend, because at one point there is no more money to flow into these assets, and eventually the trend is going to be exhausted. Nothing goes up forever, especially if capital is expensive. And right now, also, the discussions are really shifting. I listen to the All In podcast with Jamaaf and so on. And I get a lot of vibes, especially also from big money and serious money, that they think, okay, the bottom is in. We're going higher. There is no recession. Everything. The worst recessions happen when everybody agrees there is a soft landing coming, or there is a bull run, or we feel certain about the outcome that we're going to keep going higher, or then the worst recessions happen. And at the moment, I really get a bit of the feeling in the beginning of the year, everybody was betting on a recession. The recession was confirmed. It didn't come. Now it completely shifted. Like also every other YouTuber out there, in the beginning, you will lose money. You need to short. The bottom is not in. We're going to 12,000. And now the bull run is confirmed, new highs in 2024, and so on. So the narrative completely shifted around, which kind of makes me think we're going to see a recession, maybe in Q4, maybe in Q1, but it definitely feels a bit weird. And when it comes to the rate hikes, like a lot of the Fed played this very well. They telegraphed everything and they did what they said. But I'm not 100% sure if this is going to be the last rate hike. I think that Jerome Powell really wants to go for the 6%. Maybe he's chasing a number there. Maybe he's, I don't know. And this could eventually be the thing that tips us over and eventually leads us into recession. But I don't know. So I'm tending towards rate hike this week and probably another one. So 50 basis points until the end of the year is, I would place my bets on that outcome. So I don't think it's going to be the last rate hike. What about you, Julian? Do you think?
I also don't think it's going to be the last one. However, the market at the moment currently disagrees. So here you see the probabilities. The light blue one is the highest probability. So at the moment, just for your information, right now we're sitting here. So this is before tomorrow's meeting, between 5 and 5.25. The market expects a jump tomorrow by 25 basis points. I think there's going to be a nothing burger. The question is going to be the signaling. I agree. I personally think, and I agree here with the probability on this as well, and I mentioned this, I think, last time or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember, that I think the September one is going to have no change. I think if there is a change, it's going to be in November. And the reason I think it's like, why do I think November? Because it's going to have the October earnings for Q3 included. And I think that's going to be an interesting one, because most of them, or many of them, are going to come out in October, just like right now in July. And it gives the Fed some breathing room, where in September, I think they're going to be flying blind in not knowing the Q3 data. And I think here they're going to get a lot of data already, even for companies who haven't reported. They may already get information on that. So they're probably going to get the information from the large tech companies, from Walmart and so on, from the large retailers. And it's going to give them some insights in how everyone is doing. And if everyone is doing well in Q3, then I think here we're going to see another one. But I don't think afterwards we're going to see anything beyond that. I do agree we're not going to see a lowering of the interest rates this year. So that is something I also don't see. Here, the market kind of starts breaking with the first interest rate hike in 2024, which is on the 31st. So that's kind of where a lot of the probability then goes down. So let's see. This year, actually, except for the December one, no one really sees a lowering in the market right now. And I would probably agree on that as well. So I also agree. I do see the recession. The data on that to me is relatively strong, especially on everything that's happening right now, where people start having to pay back their student loans. A lot of the rents and interest payments on their housing is kicking in now with higher rates. A lot of these rates kind of take about 12 months to get adjusted. Interestingly, a lot of companies have done good refinancing pre-raising rates already. So a lot of the companies have long-term enough maturities on their debt that they don't have these issues. I mean, it's the same thing with Sailor, right? I mean, we notice in the crypto space ourselves, where Sailor has no rush right now having to pay back his loan, and his loan is, I think, priced at 0.25 or 0.5%. So it's the same situation for a lot of companies. So that's why he doesn't have to sell any of the Bitcoins because he doesn't have to pay back that loan. So it's the same for most companies. So that's the interesting part. Why do you think the prices are down? Why do you think crypto is down over the last 24 hours this week and so on?
It there is a little bit of a disconnect between risk on assets and crypto assets, because if you, so not the indexes, but if you really look at tech stocks like, for example, Apple, which, or Nvidia, which have made a clear all-time high, and Bitcoin is like, bouncing in the mid price ranges between low and highs, or not even in the mid range, but a bit lower than that. We were running on hopium for the last 2 months or so. Like, there was so much hopium going out with institutional adoptions, with ETF news, and but not real substance. It was not that we had a lot of new investors coming in. Of course, like especially on chain, you can see that shrimps, so people with less than one Bitcoin, they were consistently improving their stacks, and they kept buying and dollar cost averaging. But we were not able to really tap into new investors and new customers. Maybe, and a lot of people kind of got their hopes up that Larry Fink and BlackRock, just by them signaling that Bitcoin is an interesting trade, that they're filing for a Bitcoin ETF, that this would already lead to a somewhat of a mania, or institutions kind of coming in. But this didn't really happen. And now maybe there's a bit of an exhaustion of this hopium and trend, where we kind of, okay, it's not happening. And we are kind of looking for the next big thing, the next dose of hopium that could take us to the next level, because without the hopium, the price won't move. At least that would be my general assessment. You have and of course, I probably know what you are going to say. I think the Binance thing stopped. No.
I mean, Binance definitely stopped. I think that's the reason why we haven't seen much movement in the last 3 months in the first place. So I think that is definitely something. And to me, that's the reason why we're at 30 and not at 15, or the main reason. I think we would have gone up, just like tech went up. So tech went up dramatically, like you mentioned. I think all of crypto would have gone up. But I don't think Bitcoin would have outperformed so dramatically had Binance not been buying so much Bitcoin. So I am firmly of the opinion. Reason why crypto is down over the last week or last 48 hours, 24 hours, I have only FUD stuff, so I have nothing of substance. So I'm not going to repeat this here because I'm definitely not someone who's interested in spreading FUD, and I have no substance. So anything that gets shared right now on social, I have not seen any factual kind of stuff that could be of use there. So let's see. Maybe it's just a bit of a little bump in the road. Let's finish off with Bake. We are launching dollar cost averaging. I think it's gonna come out beginning of next week. We we don't want to launch it on Friday, so we're testing it right now. So right now it's in testing internal. We always want to test about a week internally to kind of catch all the bugs and everything. Should be good. We don't want to launch it on Friday because if there's any issues, then the team has to work over the weekend, and this just makes no sense. So we're gonna launch it. I think it's gonna be August 1st, even. I think so, at least, or July 31st. I think on the last day of July. So ready for all the August dollar cost averaging. The way this is going to launch, we're going to also cover it in greater detail next week. Next week, we're also going to talk about the transparency report, which should also be coming out this week. So for the entire second quarter, the dollar cost averaging is going to launch with DeFi chain, the DeFi, simply because that is, I think, what the DeFi chain ecosystem definitely needs after DFX stopped their support for that. So we just want to jump in there. We want to do this in a very amazing way where you have no commissions. So we're going to absorb those. The way we're going to do this is by giving you 100% for what you purchase. And then actually we're going to give you a small bonus on top. So you're actually going to get more than you purchase, but we're going to freeze the bonus. So let's say you dollar cost average for $100. We give you $100 right away. If you want, you can do whatever with those $100. And then we give you a few percent on top. The percent depend on how much you dollar cost average and how long you intend to freeze the bonus. So if you freeze the bonus for longer, we're actually going to give you a higher bonus. How does this work? Well, because the bonus is that part that gives us the kickback also with our fees that we can make back the rewards. So it's a very simple kind of winner, like win-win situation for both of us. And we're actually gonna do a special promotion around how many people are gonna go dollar cost average on that. We want to support the DeFi chain ecosystem with this because obviously the more people do this and the more people buy, there's going to be some buying pressure. And that could be quite interesting. So we want to support the ecosystem in this. We want to support everything. So that could be quite powerful, especially with the launch of MetaChain. We're waiting for the core developers there to announce when the exact hard fork date is going to happen for the MetaChain layer on DeFi chain. They're at the moment they are fixing, or they're looking into finalizing everything when it comes to the token transfers, not the DFI transfer from the base layer to the application layer, but for the token transfers that are all there. So all of these tokens have to work, and this all has to be super safe, and this is super super crucial. So they're testing everything, looking at edge cases and so on, and so that's why they just want to be extra sure on the test that everything is smooth. And yeah, that's going to be well in line. And I think we're going to see a lot of projects launch on there. We also want to support a lot of those projects. I want to be very clear on one thing. We are not going to invest in these metachain projects in any of the private sale rounds because we actually want to be on the same footing as all users and customers. So we're going to go and buy tokens just like anyone else would. We got a lot of these offers. While I think a lot of these projects are fantastic projects, and if you have access to any of the private sales, then you should definitely participate. I want to be very clear. But I don't want that Whisk Ventures, which obviously is controlled by using it myself, and Bake, which is controlled by using it myself, any ever has a conflict of interest. So we don't want to do what Binance or other platforms are said to be doing, which means they buy it at 99% discount and then dump on their users. We don't want to ever have that. So we're going to buy it on the open market. If there's burns, we're going to buy these tokens. We're going to be very transparent about this. So we want to be very clear. We're gonna support the ecosystem with our venture fund as much as possible, but we don't want to do this at the cost of the users or the investors. So also very straightforward in this. So we're really, really excited about this. And I think the dollar cost averaging is going to be very powerful. I hope the DeFi chain ecosystem supports this as well. I hope we're going to see a lot of rattling around this excitement. There's literally zero downside for people dollar cost averaging because they don't have any fees. So it's absolutely, I think, an exciting kind of path forward. Yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything there, Fabio. What do you see or questions you already have?
Yeah, a lot of people in the community might have noticed we did start the year slightly slower than other years. But for everybody that knows us, we tend to finish years really strong, especially Q4, Q3 and beginning of Q4 are really the quarters where we tend to be the strongest and have the most kind of things that we push out. And I think a lot of people might not really see where everything is going. Some people maybe are able to tie a few of the things together that we did with the rebrand, with the new app, and with the products that we have planned for Q3 and Q4. But with the products that are coming in Q3 and Q4, you will clearly see where this is going, and everything is going to make a lot of sense, tying in perfectly together with the dollar cost averaging options and so on. And as part of this, of course, we promised at the beginning of the years that there is going to be at least a handful or two handful of coins and tokens that Bake is going to list. And I think we are in the final stages. I think next week or the week after that, the next token will be live, and we've another two tokens maybe a month or so later. And here, one note: if you have any kind of ideas or wishes, what we should do, tag us on Twitter, join us on Telegram or on Discord, and please let us know what you are currently interested in. We try to do a top-down approach, so we really try to list the things first that most customers ask about, and I think we will be able to address most wishes within the next two token launches. So let's say 45 days or so. We will have two great new additions for Bake offerings.
100%. Looking forward. Yeah, quite exciting. Yeah, I think, wow, action-packed content packed episode today. We had a lot of points, a lot of very insightful things. Love it. I don't think anything else. I think we went through everything we wanted to discuss. So watch out for the dollar cost averaging. If you are going to be in Singapore around token 2049, go and join the Ord Summit. That's organized by Birthday Research. So that's going to be a special side event, especially for ordinals. So that's going to be a really cool one. There's a lot of speakers that have confirmed to be there, and there's going to be a lot of companies that are going to be there. So definitely exciting. So if you're in Singapore during this week, come to the Ord Summit. It's ordsummit.com. Check this out. And other than that, dollar cost averaging, look out beginning of next week. And yeah, tomorrow, Fed meeting. It's going to be about reading in between the lines there. Awesome. Fabio, appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good week, everyone. Stay healthy, stay safe, and see you next Tuesday. If you're not subscribed yet, this is your call to action to subscribe to the YouTube channel, to the podcast. Remember, crypto prices are not going up if you don't subscribe. So you don't want to create a bad omen here. Subscribe. Like, why risk it? Like, why take the risk? I mean, do you really want the prices to go down? I think prices went down because you didn't subscribe. Like, so many of you didn't subscribe, so that's why prices went down. That's the punishment. So prices should go up. Click the subscribe button. If you love this video, if you love the action, then please like it, share it with friends, and leave us a beautiful comment. That's the oxygen we live for. And obviously, if you're not a big customer yet, head over to big.io, scan the QR code that you see up there, or on Twitter, simply click on the link. All the best. Thank you so much, everyone. Peace out.